This show is a member of the Planetside Podcast Network. To learn more, go to planetsidepodcasts.com.
Welcome to I Shouldn't Have to Say This, the podcast where we discuss topics we believe requires critical and nuanced thinking. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at saythiscast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at saythiscast or go to saythiscast.com to hear previous episodes.
Hey there, party people. Not changing that for the new season. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'm joined here today by the laughing man, Genre.
Welcome to year 3 of I Shouldn't Have to Say This. Let's go.
We are very excited about this new horizon. I am so much more busy than I was the last couple of years that we've been doing this podcast. So we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, doing topics that are a little bit more pragmatic and a little bit less heady for the most part. I mean, I say that, but the topic that we're going to do after this is going to be super heady.
Yeah.
So I'm lying.
Don't say that. Don't lie.
I'm lying.
But
You're
lying to the people.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about feminism, but we're going to talk about how feminists, especially young feminists, but more broadly, I think all of us could do a better job of understanding the fundamentals of feminism and, in particular, what patriarchy is. So, shockingly, for once in a literal lifetime, it feels like patriarchy is not a term that has lost its meaning, actually. I think that people generally, when they say patriarchy, they kind of, if they know what it is and give a fuck, so there are a lot of thresholds to get over. But if they're familiar with the term, they aren't wrong, extremely wrong. I think most of us agree that patriarchy is a system that privileges men in society over women, generally speaking, or over men over anybody. I mean, you certainly aren't getting better treatment than non-binary people, or worse treatment than non-binary people. Rather, let me be gender inclusive, and I apologize for that bit of transphobia there. I will try not to do that again. You gotta own your fuck ups when you make them.
Yeah, we'll keep that in.
Yeah.
So this is one of the few words that, like, I just think about, like, one of our earlier episodes about language and about how different groups can, like, take hold of different words and phrases and things like that. But this is a phrase that has remained pretty static for its meaning, like, throughout culture, which is pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, I think that we could get into another completely different topic on that, because conservatives will twist the meaning of terms when the meaning of the term refers to something that they don't want to address, but they just think that patriarchy is good. So they don't need to change the definition. They just say yes, and patriarchy is good. Women should get back into the kitchen, and men should be the ones to win the bread. I mean, that's just natural.
Yeah.
So they don't need to do anything to the term patriarchy. I think that what I'm going to try and critique today is actually something that a lot of feminists do. So I'm going to use a framing device. Well, maybe not a framing device. I'm just going to use a prompt, okay? So there is a TikTok that went kind of viral. That had a woman kind of looking sarcastic with her eyes like rolling, and it said, "Men crying about the patriarchy they created doesn't allow them to be emotional or vulnerable."
What?
So essentially, the point of the tweet is that men will cry that they don't get to be emotional or vulnerable, but that's the price that they pay in patriarchy for being privileged and
Yeah.
upheld. And the idea that, if you bitch about it, you could always stop being part of a patriarchal society. Now, there are a few
What?
issues. There are
It's
just
so dumb.
yeah, it's extremely stupid. So let's just go down the list. Let's start with the major one. Never pay. So when we're talking about like a systemic racism, patriarchy, transmisogyny, heteronormativity. When we're talking about heteronormativity or systems of oppression which are systemic, not individual, it is very stupid and ill-advised and shitty to take the word and apply it to a single person. Let me explain. So a guy can be sexist. A guy can be raised in a sexist society. The guy who was raised in the sexist society and therefore is sexist is not upholding the entire sexist society, nor did he choose his upbringing. He's just a product of it. Moreover, it's not just the men in his life who are telling him to man up or or not to cry or to be stoic or anything. A lot of the time, the messages that boys and men, take into themselves and internalize come from women. I want you all, if you were in a normal school environment growing up, to just think back and see if you can figure out a single memory of a woman, a teacher, a mother, an aunt, a grandma. And I'm sure that if you're a man, you're not even going to have to think that hard about it. But for you women out there and you NBs, just think about seeing a woman in a boy's life tell them, oh, you can't cry. Or, oh, suck it up. Or, oh, be a man. Or, that's not how you be a man. A man has to be stoic. You need to be calm in this situation. You need to be unemotional. Because I can remember a lot of times where women will uphold patriarchy and to give patriarchal ideas to their sons, to their nephews, to the men in their lives. Even romantic partnerships with people who are ostensibly pretty progressive. I know a lot of women who don't want to see their men cry, or who are turned off when their men are vulnerable with them. So it's not individual men who are upholding patriarchy. And also, the second point, I kind of rolled into the second one there. Women are, I'm not going to say just as guilty, but it's close.
I mean, everybody's part of the system. Like, we have this patriarchal system in our culture, in our society, and it's not just men who are upholding it. I mean, that's boiling it down. Like, women also take part in it. Obviously, like you were rolling into that. I just want to say, like, just flat out, it's not. We all live in this, and we all have our like roles that we're expected to play in this society, which is not anybody's choice at this point. I mean, is that like part of what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty much. We don't choose to grow up the way that we do. And a lot of boys, frankly, are born pretty sensitive. They're not born stoic. They get that message imprinted on them as they grow up and they have interactions with people, and they're punished for vulnerability and they're rewarded for stoicism. It's really simple. So individual men don't do that. So when individual men lament that patriarchal society hurts them, it is really fucked up to make fun of them or to say you're not allowed to feel that way, because they're also victims of patriarchy. Now, I know that a lot of people cringe when you say men are also victims of patriarchy because they are the main beneficiaries of patriarchy. However, there is a term that I want to introduce. Oh God, we're getting so far off it. I want to talk about benevolent sexism.
Okay.
Which is just the idea that treating women preciously and like they're not expendable and like they're too precious to do hard work and things of that nature is really irritating. If you're a woman and you're walking around and you're lifting up your bag of groceries and some guy comes in and he like swoops in and he picks up your bags and he puts them in and like you don't know who the strange motherfucker is, they're performing what they think you need because you look like you were struggling, or maybe they just thought like you're a woman so of course you're struggling, but that's really infantilizing. Or when people say, you know, text me when you get home, or you know, when men are saying you can't do that because you're a woman and that's dangerous for you. Those are types of benevolent sexism where the goal is to keep you safe, but it also puts a lot of restrictions on your freedom as a woman to self-determination, to figuring out your own limitations, because there's always some guy waiting in the wings to come and try and fucking save you. It's irritating as shit to grow up with. But on the flip side of benevolent sexism, there's expendability, which men experience. So the idea that, you know, send some men off to war, they're fine. What's a few men lost to war if we get oil reserves in Afghanistan or whatever? And of course that really sucks. Or, you know, yeah, that man has to work 80-hour weeks to put food on his table, but that's a man's job. It's fine if his limited sanity is starting to dwindle. Just the idea that men should leave it all on the table to give the best possible life to their families, no matter what.
Give it 110%.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't give in. Push through it. Push through the pain.
You know, if you see a woman suffering, or if you see a woman struggling with something and you struggle just as much, you pick it up so you struggle just as much as they did.
Yeah, you take the struggle from the woman. Like, that's your job. I mean, like you're talking about that, and I just think about like the concept of chivalry,
mm-hmm.
and how it sucks for women because like a guy is flying out of nowhere trying to open a door, you know, or like open a door for you or something like that, or carry your bags or something like that. Like I'm sure that it's exhausting, but on the flip, like you're saying, on the flip side, like this is something that we as men, and I am a cis man, so this topic is something I think about a lot. It's exhausting to be on the lookout for someone that has a door or something that you need to, or something that you need to carry, because that's what's expected. And if you don't do that, then you're a bad man. You're bad at being a man. It's insane.
Yeah.
I have to stop using those terms too. Like we talked about, it's wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, no problem. My grandpa's 96. When I was visiting him this year, he wanted to take my bag down a flight of stairs, then out a long driveway to the side of a highway for me. I am a reasonably strange, if not, or I am reasonably strange. I meant to say strong. Oh no, I got myself. I am a reasonably strong, if not a bit out of shape, 27-year-old woman. I can carry my rolling bag down a flight of stairs.
Right.
And then I can roll out to the highway by myself. Better than a man who is 96 and not very steady on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's reality. But the expectations that patriarchy lays out for him and has been laying out for him for 96 years inhibits him from being able to watch a woman do something, even if, logically, he should understand that I'm more physically capable of doing that than he is.
I am disabled, like physically disabled. When you were talking about that, that made complete sense. I would do that. I would be like, oh, there's a bag. And I would, like, me right now, I would have to think, okay, she can carry her own bag. Stop. I would have to actually think about that intelligently, because my immediate reaction to you saying that and you saying, oh, I can carry my own bag is, why would you? I can do it for you. Why?
Yeah.
That instinct is just instilled in men from the time we're growing up.
And, as annoying as it is for us, there have been many times where, just yesterday, I saw a dead bird in my backyard, and the dog was going to eat it, so I had to get it out of there. But, rather than pick it up because it was frankly weirding me out, I went inside and I got my dad. Because if I say like, oh, I'm scared of the bird, then he'll do it for me, and I don't have to do it. Yeah. And that's sexism at play. But do I benefit? Oh shit, yes. So, and I'm not trying to say that sexism is more beneficial than not to women, but we do benefit in certain ways, and men are victims in certain ways. The same elements that oppress women are sometimes convenient, and the same things that give men the ability to be independent and exercise self-determination and to be left alone about all these different things is also the seeds of their own undoing sometimes. It's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what immediately pops out and hits me on the face about what's wrong with that TikTok. But also not just that TikTok, because I've been in a lot of feminist spaces. I've known a lot of progressive women. And this is a sentiment that I see a lot. Men suck. Men are bad. Fuck men. Things like that, because they're responsible for the patriarchy. But I just think that it's important every once in a while for us to ruminate on the fact that they're not. They're indoctrinated from birth into it. And that makes them insufferable, but not their fault.
One thing about that is that as men, we are expected to internalize that. A woman says that you suck, and you're like, yeah. Like, as a progressive man, in progressive circles, that is a thing that we are expected to do. Just men suck. Okay. And no matter what, you're expected to just take that in and just let it ride. Even if you have an opinion about that, it's not okay to speak about that yourself.
Yeah. But men don't suck because they're some sort of irredeemable subspecies of human beings. And also, a lot of men can be socialized out of it. You'd be really amazed what extending a little bit of human kindness to a man can do. It's like that meme of the strange llama man eating out of the hand of the person, saying, "Thank you, you saved my life." Like, just acting like a normal person can really do a number on a guy.
I remember you posting a meme, just a meme of of this sentiment, it was like a dog with like a big bowl of food, and it's like men, when you give them a specific compliment, like a single compliment, and it's like the most happy dog ever. It's like,
yeah, because men don't
I forget exactly what it is, but it's like,
yeah,
you give a man a compliment, like just one compliment, and it just makes their day. And I remember thinking about if someone's one time you complimented me on my editing of the show, and I just rode on that for like a few days. Like,
Men
and
don't
it was
get
like
complimented.
offhand. What'd you say?
I'm just saying, men don't get complimented.
No, why
No.
would we? We're expected to do these things. We're expected to be stoic, or we're expected to be the rock in the relationship or something like that. These are things that, like, why would you compliment someone on doing their job, kind of thing?
And also, just people are not trained to. If you're not a man, it's really common just to say like, "Hey, I like your shirt. Hey, I like your shoes." Or, "Hey, you're looking fresh today." Men don't get that a lot.
No.
Not from other men, and certainly not from just people outside of the gender. People just kind of tend to say like, "They look all right today," or like, "That's a man." It's like, well, maybe that man spent a long time on his beard today. Maybe that man dressed up really spiffy and he thinks he's looking good, and you think he's looking good, but you don't externalize it. We're really far away from the tweet. Want to just talk about the ways in which men are victimized by the patriarchy?
I thought that's what you were going for. Like,
Yeah,
that's where
pretty
you're moving
much.
to. So
Yeah, I just
sure.
got mad about it. It wasn't initially, but I got mad about it because it really does suck a lot. One thing that bothers me a lot is that men don't have anybody to advocate for them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, we're supposed to stand up for ourselves.
Yeah. Regular men don't think about this at all. They just go through life taking punches and pretending to be stoic and never telling anybody any of the things that they feel until they find a woman to get into a heterosexual relationship with. And then they dump all of the emotional baggage that they've accumulated over 30 years and drown her to death in them.
Or just realize what's happening, and then stop.
Yeah, or start, and then because it's too much for any individual person to handle, they get left because it's too fucking much.
Yeah.
And that sucks, because men should have friends. And not just, guys that you drink a beer with and say, "Yep," like king of the goddamn hill. Like friends that you can talk to. A lot of Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
the guy friends that I have, we don't usually talk about like emotional stuff. You're not supposed to do that. We talk about like stuff that we're doing or jokes or politics or something, but you're not supposed to talk about like your relationship or your like how you're feeling that day or anything unless you're really, really, really close to the person, like you feel like a brother to them or something. Like you don't do that with your friends. And then you see, like, I see women, they're like, "Oh, you look cute today," or like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And you have like a big like you can have like just a conversation, and it blows my mind. Like
Exactly.
if I'm not, it's just like how, and I will say that like as I was growing up, the women in my family did, and like my family and how I was raised in that sphere were very good at saying like, no, it's okay to feel your emotions. It's okay to say, it's okay to talk about how you're feeling. It's okay. Your emotions are valid, and I'm really happy for that. Men that are raised in that environment and then go out into the world, that is also something that's really out there, because now you have these conflicting messages. Like you go home, it's okay to cry, it's okay to say that you're sad or something. You go out, you're at school, you're at work or something, and then you start to express emotion and you get shut down. And that is mentally exhausting as well. Like from my experience, it's something that a lot of guys that were they had the benefit of a home life like that, but going out into a society that is ruled by patriarchy and that is ruled by these rules that you weren't taught growing up, can be like a cultural whiplash. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, not specifically that because I'm a cis woman, but
Yeah, I mean, like
but
intellectually,
yeah,
you can, yeah.
Also, like, I feel like there are probably things that I could think of. Well, actually, definitely, because I grew up with a very specific, like, I grew up in like a black household. We are culturally like Black American and Jamaican, and then
Oh
I
my
went to
God, yeah.
white, like not just white, but like a very Jewish school. And like there are just certain things like, you know, you don't snitch in my family. And they were like, or if you see somebody getting shit on outside in the playground, you get in there and you save their ass. Like that's
Right.
like that's what you do. And they would be telling their kids, if you see somebody getting their shit kicked in, you walk away.
What?
like just literally like walk away. That's their problem.
Hold
And
on.
if you go and tell an adult, you're gonna be the next target. So just ignore it. That's some shit that like people around me were being told. And there were
Wow.
people who were expelled from my school for sticking up for people.
Yeah.
My cousin, for instance, got like expelled for beating up a bully who was beating up some nerd. And that just blew our fucking minds. My parents had to sit me down and say, I don't know. I don't care what's happening to those other people. Try not to swing. Cause that's like, it's a no-brainer for us. If you see somebody in need, you swing if you need to.
I mean, that's something else. Like not just guys being raised in the patriarchy, in the culture of patriarchy that we have, but also the expectations of Black men and the addition of that, because there are other rules and there are other expectations on top of the, you know, standard vanilla patriarchy. You know, like we have extra stuff that goes on top of that, like every culture does, like that they expect their men to do X and Y. I obviously only have experience with the with being a Black man in this society, and it's again, it's just there's so much to navigate. It's exhausting to try to keep up with everything.
Yeah, essentially, men don't get to talk about this shit. They get exhausted. When's the last time you heard a man get to talk about how exhausted they are with trying to be in their role in society? Because women get to vent. We get to talk about how shit this is, but men don't get to talk about how shit their shit is. And also, whenever they try, people immediately think about the men's rights movement. And that's where I want to shift for a second.
Well, before you shift, I just want to say I am talking about how exhausting this is, and I have the ability and the freedom to talk about this. You know why? Because you gave me the permission to do that.
And you deserve to.
Like, but I had to get like permission from a woman to have a conversation about this, because I'm not supposed to talk about this with women because it's not my place. And it's not my place at all. But because you said at the beginning, like we were talking about like what, and you're like, yeah, I want to talk about this. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I can actually contribute this. Oh my God. You know, so that's another thing that I just realized, like, I would not be talking about this with Nicole, who clearly would want to talk about this. I would not broach this subject if without her bringing it up first.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the men's rights movement and how there's not really like political advocacy for what we're talking about, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So what I want to say so this is all kind of what I wanted to lead up to, is to communicate with people who are interested in improving the plights of women or abolishing the patriarchy or just generally doing things that shit in the face of like patriarchal expectations, because there's a entire untapped part of the advocacy for the abolition of patriarchy that nobody seems to give a single shit about genuinely, and that is the plight of men, unironically, because men have no political advocates. I know that's going to sound really fucked up because, like, what about the men's rights movement? Well, when was the last time you heard about anybody in the men's rights movement talk about anything other than how women ruin their lives or how moms are hoes or some shit?
Yeah.
They talk about men's issues by bitching about women.
Yeah.
Conservatives, there are circles that this is a Venn diagram here between conservatives and men's rights activists, but they're not circles. Conservatives also say we care about men, but they demand a very stringent ideal of a man. They don't support gay men, they don't support trans men, they don't support emotional men, they don't support any man that's not a normative, socially and emotionally repressed white man who has never shown vulnerability a day in his life. He cries in the shower like the rest of us.
Not even then. Not allowed.
Yeah.
Maybe like in a darkened room listening to like Peter Murphy or something. I don't fucking know. Staring off into the middle distance. That's a Patton Oswalt joke. But
yeah. Just the people who say they advocate for men aren't, because they don't advocate for men to be able to be vulnerable, to talk about their feelings, to have people understand, like, hey, it is okay and a part of being a normal human being to compliment men. Men are not expendable. These type of things don't get talked about unless it's also talked through the lens of shitting on women. So, here's an opportunity for us feminists. We want to abolish the patriarchy. We understand that feminism hurts women really, really well. So now, and we understand how men participate in the hurting of women under patriarchy. However, we have a blind spot, and that's in understanding how our role in upholding patriarchy goes selectively. In terms of expecting men to do certain things, accepting benevolent sexism, never complimenting men, sitting around talking about how shit men are without expanding or accepting that that's part of their socialization. But also, we should be actively advocating for men's rights, unironically. Not the MRAs, but for the right of men to act like human beings, because men and women are not that dissimilar. Genuinely speaking, I have close male friends, and they're not automatons. Like, it sounds really fucking weird to say, but I feel like sometimes people don't expect men to have real feelings, and they do. Even super stoic men's men. I started paying attention to this more. Like, men who I never paid attention to, like, their inner lives or their feelings or anything in my family. A few years ago, I just started talking to them as human beings, or trying to listen to them, or really engage with them on an emotional level. And all of them, to their benefit or to their credit, reacted by, like, open and honest conversation and communication. And it just kind of makes me super sad that men don't get that from the women in their lives, or the NBs in their lives. We can't. You can't even get that from other men.
We need permission. We need to have a specific space that is created to talk about these things. This is why like men's group therapy is so important. And why men going to therapy is so important, especially if they want to improve themselves in terms of this, like being able to express themselves. Because we weren't raised with the tools to understand and properly express how we like our emotional lives. We have to learn that like through our lives, hopefully. But a lot of men just don't get that in general, you know?
Yeah. And it's also a process, because I'm not trying to say, hey, women, just flip a switch and start treating men properly, because something that you said about giving the tools to healthily process that information really resonates with me. Because one of my worst and most awful things that happens to me when I'm talking to men or I'm playing my video games and I used to be a big MMO person, this happened all the time, is I just be making friends with men. Like, I'm a lesbian. I don't give a fuck. I'm here for you as a human being. We're people communicating. I don't like what's in, I no interest. And a lot of men will take me being like marginally nice to them or forming a genuine friendship as a romantic advance. And it's not their fault. And I've gotten really good at being friends with people with romantic feelings for me because of this. But I'm always like, no.
God, that has to be so exhausting. Like having to deal with that all the time.
90% of men are really cool about it. If you're just like, hey man, I just want to be your friend. Like, we're not going there. They're like, oh, okay. And then you can just go along. But it is exhausting, because it's like, you're trying to be a good friend. But so many men process very basic things as being romantic or special. And it shouldn't be special and it shouldn't be romantic. A lot of jokes get cracked about like men who perceive like an errant compliment as like, you know, I'm like incels, like oh yeah, she said I was funny and she liked my joke, and so I jerked off for 5 years to that idea because she clearly loves me, and now I'm going to shoot up the school because they're not because she said that she liked me, but then I asked her out to prom and she said no, and clearly she was leading me on, and all she said was, hey man, that was a funny joke 5 years ago. Yeah. But that also speaks to the level of that men are deprived of just normal interactions, because it shouldn't be It shouldn't be so rare that somebody is nice to a guy that when they have somebody be nice to them, that it just automatically gets processed as like romantic. That needs to, so there's some therapy involved and there's some communication. And also there's a layer of sometimes men are scary. So, you know, if men get scary when you're nice to them, it's hard to tell women to just be nice to men. Because, yeah, I've been nice to a guy who gets a weird obsessive crush on me, and that's not cool. So I don't want to say that I'm like whitewashing the situation here, but the fact remains is that the type of day-to-day advocacy, like saying, hey, like, men, it's okay for this, or like, hey, like, I like your shoes, or hey, like, it's not cool that we don't compliment men. Normalizing these things will make it easier for, if it starts happening to men on a daily basis for more than one person, then it will be safer for all of us.
That concept just blows my mind.
Of what?
Being complimented on regularly.
Yeah,
it makes it literally like it's like trying to think of $1 trillion. You know it exists. You know that it's possible to have that much money. You just can't, like, forming the concept, like the actual concept of that in real life is difficult.
Wow.
Like, that's getting compliments every day. Like that I don't know how I would handle that. Like psychologically, I don't know how it would be very, very strange if that was happening. Like, I would have to, that's something I would have to get used to.
Yeah, so this is a long-term project, because a long life of being treated in this way has made a lot of men very strange, and I do not want to shy away from that fact. So I'm not saying
we're weird.
Like, listen, being depraved of like being deprived. I keep saying depraved, but being deprived of
depraved too, yeah.
being deprived of that positivity or that external affirmation, or even just, a feeling of mattering beyond your economic output for a really long time turns a lot of guys into like fucking weirdos who are sometimes really dangerous if you try to extend a hand up because they don't know how to process it, or they misinterpret it and they get mad when they misinterpret it because they've only ever figured out how to act mad. That's the only emotion they have.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt again, but that is something that that I was thinking about when you were talking about MRAs. The emotion that we are allowed to express is anger. So advocacy for men's rights is based in anger because that's how we advocate for ourselves.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all we can do. Like that, like in the general society, not like in different cultures or anything like that. But like that's the default. Like either you don't feel anything or you don't express anything, or you can act like annoyed or not annoyed, angry.
Yeah.
So
I was
annoyed
about to
is
say,
being a little bitch.
Annoyed is effeminate. Effeminate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So
He's snarky a little bit.
which is all
Sorry.
to say that there's an opportunity that feminists should take to be compassionate in our advocacy for an equal society. A society which, yes, allows women to do what they want, but also allows men to do what they want. And
Yeah.
allows men to, split the fucking bill or not open a door for a woman or, say, I am 97 years old. My grandpa is 97, not 96. 97 years old. My granddaughter is clearly more capable of carrying this bag out, and I am not going to feel bad about letting her do it. Any of that shit requires compassionate advocacy, and it's hard to imagine it coming from men right now. Ideally, men would do this work, but when men seem to tackle this issue, men who are feminists or familiar with feminism are trained to internalize a lot of the shit about how men are trash. They're not. And they're trained not to talk about their issues because clearly they pale in comparison to women's issues, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're comparable. And
you ever bring up the fact that just the concept of men being sexually assaulted?
I have never brought it up, but Jesus, if you ever try and do that, like
that is something that is important to talk about, especially in our prison system. But it's not something that like the amount of people that are assaulted, like men that are assaulted. We don't really know because so many just go unreported. It's just another example of how it's fucked up. And like you were saying, the like in our trying to be better people, especially the people listening to this podcast, and just even in progressive circles, men are, and like I said at the beginning, men are expected to just, if we hear like men are trash or something, we're just expected to take it because we're men, we're part of the patriarchy, and that's what we deserve. Like progressive men, this is something that I've noticed a lot, and I've noticed that like it's just part of the progressive movement. Like when we're talking about patriarchy, we're not supposed to disagree with anything or bring up our own points. It's just, yep, men are trash, or we agree.
Yeah. And that really sucks. And we should start de-emphasizing that type of reaction or that type of sentiment, because it really fucking sucks and it's not true. And we should try and be compassionate and say like, hey, you can be vulnerable. The men's rights movement is too far gone, and they also blame women for all of their issues. But if we could build a new coalition of feminists and men who give a shit about men, like a single shit about men, and just talk about men's issues honestly and openly and don't consistently shit on them, we might be able to get some movement on the topic of men being asshole weirdos. And if we get that, patriarchy will, like, it's going to be nigh on impossible to dismantle patriarchy if men are our enemies, because they're not. They're our allies. Patriarchy hurts us all. If we form a coalition, it'll go much better.
I just want to, if it's okay, I just want to end on one thing. The patriarchy is partially supported by this concept. It is partially supported by men being expected to be stoic or emotional rocks, or not, or just not emotional at all. And if we want to disassemble part of this like toxic environment, then one of the things that we have to do is try to lessen that effect and bring or give men the right to be sad or be depressed or be happy or something like that. Because if you take that away, then part of the patriarchy falls down. It's one of the pillars of the patriarchy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely.
Yeah.
And also, all men are kings. Not all of them, but, you know, men are born kings and then become corrupted weirdos by patriarchy. Short men are also cool. And if you're a man, I like your hair today. It's looking pretty good. I can't see it, obviously, but if I saw it, I think that it would look good. I think that you did a good job. And you're very handsome. And that's the episode.
You immediately want to argue against that?
And that's so funny because aren't you bald?
No, I haven't shaved my head in a little bit.
You're doing great.
It doesn't matter. Even if I like spent like an hour on my hair today, or like I tried to dress to the nines or something, I would argue against that. I can't. It's not true. I don't look good today. I can't look good today.
You see?
Oh man. I guess that's the episode.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
This should be called Men Are Kings. Hey, we're here in the third year calling men kings and trying to jumpstart people to actually treat men like human beings. And if you want to support this ongoing mission of treating men well, my co-host here, Genre, is going to explain how you can do that.
If you would like to support the show, there are a few different ways that you can do that. First off, you can go to our Ko-fi, that is ko-fi.com/saythiscast, and you can give us like a one-time cash prize or something. That would really help just support everything. You can also become a patron. We just recorded an extra 15 minutes of content further talking about the topic, and it was interesting. So if you want to hear that, then become a patron. You can go to patreon.com/saythiscast and become a patron at $10 a month. And if you do that, then you can hear all of our extra content. If you do $5, then you get your episode early. If you do $1, then just thank you very much. We appreciate you. And you get to post in our Patreon and ask questions or suggest topics and stuff. So patreon.com/saythiscast. All right, so after all of that and trying to be positive to men and to just people trying to be better people, we want to be positive now too. So Nicole, what is the positive thing that you are thinking about or doing or whatever right now? Let's go.
Okay, I have two current obsessions.
Okay.
So, number one, there is an incremental game called the Kittens game. It is by incremental, I mean like cookie clicker, if you're familiar with that. You just do things and see number go up. But
Cool.
the interesting thing about this game is that it's about kittens. And so you have like, your kitten and he's in the woods, and then you build things and their society grows in these really like wild and crazy ways. I don't want to get too into it because there's some shit that's like completely off the wall. If you play this game, do it blind, or do it blind. But
Nice.
you light spoiler here. You can like choose different political policies for them. So for example,
kittens?
yeah, so my society of kittens praises tradition. They are a monarchy. They love cultural exchange. They love stoicism, unlike
Alright.
me in real life. They praise mysticism, unlike me in real life. And they're environmentalists, like me in real life. I just built them ships. They went across the continent, and now they're doing trades with zebras for titanium.
Jesus.
I mean, it's some off-the-wall wild shit in this
Please
game.
tell me the monarch is called the Kitty King.
I don't know. There's no monarch.
Just you
Sure,
said it was
okay.
You said they were a monarchy, I thought.
They are. You don't get that granular into like the specifics.
Well,
but
now the Cat King is called the Kitty King. That's just canon now.
New headcanon.
Yes.
But this game has no graphics. It's just your imagination. My favorite thing is just giving people in my life updates about the kittens. Like, I'm just like, oh, my kittens just built a basilica. Like, or
what is
like
this called? The kitty game? The kitten game?
The kittens game. You can play it on your PC, and I think there's an Android client, I know, because that's where I play it, and I think you can also get it on iOS. But it's a really cute game. You pick it up and put it down. I play it during the day, most days, and I think that I'm not going to get bored of it for a while. It gives you just enough to keep coming back. The second obsession that I have is Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. It's a computer RPG made by Owlcat Games. It is a Dungeons and Dragons inspired computer RPG, kind of in the vein of Baldur's Gate. And I'm not a huge computer RPG fan. I always feel like I should be because a lot of them are really highly praised, but I just can't get into them for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I really fucking love this game. It's kind of classic D&D rules, which is helping me get used to them. And also, it's kind of full of like a strangely diverse cast of characters. I always go for games that allow you to play as a druid because I like shape-shifting. Druid was my main in World of Warcraft. It makes me nostalgic. And so I've just been having a really fun time with it. It's a great game. It's kind of bugged out right now. And also, I'm really proud of Owlcat Games because this is their second game. It's kind of technically a sequel, maybe. The first game was Pathfinder Kingmaker, and that game was less than stellar because there is a really, 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 really fucking strict time limit for everything that you do in the game that made everybody kind of crazy because it was too much. So they kind of toned that down a lot. And by a lot, I mean there's no strict time limit, essentially, in Wrath of the Righteous. And it's really fun. The lore is really deep. I mean, it's D&D, it's the Pathfinder universe thing. It's a good time. It's really different than Baldur's Gate 3. That's the other CRPG that I'm really into. And it's a different take on Dungeons and Dragons, and it's just beautiful game, indie, diverse, fun as shit, and I recommend it. I think that people should play it. I have 24 hours on it, and I don't really regret. I've been playing like all weekend pretty obsessively.
Wow.
What's making you happy, Jonah?
This game is crazy.
Which one?
Kittens game. My blood
yeah,
riser.
It's wild.
It's just shit,
yeah. The creators, the dev is Blood Riser.
This game is crazy. All right, so my thing is last episode I talked about the Avatar, the Legends, the tabletop role playing game based on Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Kickstarter. It just ended a few days ago. At a $50,000 that they needed to produce the game, they got 9.5 million.
Wow.
They are one of the most funded Kickstarters ever, and the top tabletop game ever funded on Kickstarter by 430% above the last one. So people like their Avatar. It's a great series. I love it. And they have quick start rules. And I said I was going to run my own kickstart game like that, like with the simple rules. And I did it the other night, and holy crap, was it fun. Oh my God. it was, and we barely used we didn't have the rules for progression or a lot of different powers or anything like that. These are just simple pre-made characters and a pre-made adventure. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it because I think it's hilarious. The characters, the players, I had 3 people playing and they were stuck in a jail. A guy comes out and he says, I have a special thing that I need to get out of the city and you're going to help me. He lets him out of jail. Normally, what they're supposed to do, there's a fair going on. They're supposed to go out, they're supposed to sneak out and lose themselves in the fair, and there's stuff to do than that. My people decided there's probably a secret exit in the catacombs, so they go deeper in the castle. Completely off the map, threw the adventure away. There was nothing I could do. It was crazy, but by the end, everybody had a really good time. The rules were simple and easy to do, and really easy to make up stuff as you go along and still keep the story going. And it's just really, really great. If you like Avatar: The Last Airbender and you like tabletop role-playing games, the core rules are coming out in January, February. It's gonna be it's really, really fun. So I'm really excited about it. So yeah, that's been really great. And I got a compliment on my GM skills, and I've been just floating on that for a little while.
Oh, apt. Very apt.
Yeah, so one of the players, they were like, yeah, I GM games. This was great. And I'm like,
thank you. I'll eat for a month off of this.
Right?
All right, we're getting back into
unironically, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Eat for a month. Yes. Anyway, that's it for the first episode of year 3 of I Shouldn't Have to Say This. We are gonna do some great stuff this year. So if you want to know more, remember we put our episodes out every 2 weeks, and you can go to saythiscast.com to hear the past episodes and subscribe to everything. Links to Patreon and everything like that at saythiscast.com. You can also follow us at saythiscast on Twitter. And speaking of Twitter, where can we find you online, Nicole?
You can find me on Twitter at Jack of 3 Traits. That's 3 is in the number, and don't try and find me anywhere else.
You're forbidden from trying to search her out. You can find me online at Press Start Lock, and I talk on there a lot. It's whatever, but if you like the music that we play today, our new theme song is by the One Ups. It's called Katamari Taino. It is a cover of Katamari Damacy, and you can get that from store.mustenenterprises.com. I Shouldn't Have to Say This is a member of the Planetside Podcast Network. To learn more, go to planetsidepodcasts.com.